Hello folks and welcome back to The Shack. This is Joe N2DI coming to you today with the second installment of my two-part series on the Kenwood TH-D75. In the first part of the series we covered the GPS functions of this HT, and today we're going to cover APRS. Now I'm not going to go into the history of APRS, you can find that on the internet anywhere. This is more of an explanation of what APRS actually is and how you can use it. I'm going to do things differently than other APRS videos that you've seen on YouTube. In this video, I'm going to show you the settings you need to get yourself up and running, and I'm going to explain what they mean as we cover them. This way, when we're done, you can more confidently use your HT. Now, because of time, I'm not going to cover every single setting, but I will cover the important stuff that you need to get up and running. When we're done with the settings, I'll show you how to use some APRS functions in a practical scenario where you're hiking into a fictitious national park to meet up with a ham friend and APRS enthusiast. In this scenario, cell coverage is spotty, which gives you both an opportunity to try out APRS. So if you're ready to learn about APRS on the Kenwood TH-D75, then let's get started. So what is APRS? In short, it's a digital mode, similar to other digital modes like FT8 or RTTY. It's different though because you normally don't have a QSO with it like you would with the other digital modes. There's no handshake with another party. The format is different. APRS stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System. The packet part just means a data burst. It's just a 1 second long transmission of data to anyone that can hear it. You're just popping up like a blip on a radar screen saying, "Here I am." So what can be sent? Well, really it can be anything, but what's normally sent is your call sign with a little bit of extra text information and usually your location information. But beyond your GPS position, you can send objects with their own position information, meaning like you can beacon, "Hey, this thing is over there." Like there's a car accident over at this GPS location, or this GPS location is where our camp is set up. You can also send weather information. Hams connect weather stations and broadcast their local weather conditions out. Also, weather alerts can be forwarded from the National Weather Service. That can be useful if you're on a hike. Telemetry data can also be sent from things like satellites or planes or ships. You can also send messages, like actual strings of text can be transmitted back and forth to other folks. You can also send bulletins to wider groups. And also, more interestingly, queries and responses can be sent, meaning you can request a bit of information and someone or something on the APRS network will respond with that information. Now, to understand that, you have to understand the APRS network. So let's take a quick detour and talk about what the APRS network is, because APRS isn't just you alone with your HT. The backbone of the APRS network is made up of digipeaters, iGates, and the APRS-IS. A digipeater is a digital repeater. It's like a regular analog FM repeater, except that when it hears an APRS packet, it saves it long enough to retransmit it again on the same frequency. There isn't any offset duplexing or anything like that to another frequency. It just hears the packet and then retransmits it on the same frequency. Now, an iGate is an internet gateway. An iGate receives data from a local radio transmission, and then it injects it into the internet system. Now, the internet system is the APRS-IS. That stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System Internet Service. It's a global network that links various local APRS networks together. It acts like a backbone, allowing APRS data that is normally transmitted over local radio frequencies to be shared worldwide. This allows iGates around the world to receive that data and transmit it back out over their local radio frequencies. It's also important to know that a digipeater can be an iGate too. You can have a combination station. Now let's tie this all together with what I mentioned before about the query and response messages that you can send along with this whole APRS network. Now this is just an example of a path that your APRS packet may take, okay? You can craft an APRS packet that will ask for your local repeater based on your GPS information and then beacon it out. That packet might hit a local digipeater, which will retransmit it hopefully with more power. Now, a second digipeater further out, that's also an iGate in range of that first digipeater, takes that packet and it sends it over the internet. Now, on the internet somewhere, there is a server waiting for that type of APRS request. So it takes your packet, it reads your location information, and it looks up the repeater information in your area. Then it sends its own APRS packet with the repeater information back to the iGate that sent that request. Now, when that iGate gets it, it's going to retransmit it back out, which should be heard by that first digipeater, which will retransmit it again so your HT can pick it up. And then you'll get that APRS packet with your local repeater info in it. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with APRS. Okay, let's go through the APRS menu settings, starting with the basic settings. So that's menu 500. This is where you enter your call sign, followed by a dash and some number. That number is the SSID, which stands for Secondary Station ID. It's a way to differentiate your station, especially if you have multiple radios. This is a list from the APRS.org website. Normally -7 is for your HT. The other numbers here that are interesting is -0, which is your primary station, usually your QTH. -5 can be your mobile phone. -7 is normally an HT. -8 is reserved for boats. -9 is primarily for mobile. -11 is for aircraft. -14 is professional drivers like truckers. And 15 is like a generic additional station ID that you can use if you're messing around. Menu 501 is where you set your icon. This icon can be seen on the APRS.FI website map whenever you transmit your position. This is a list of the few of the icons from the manual for the Kenwood TH-D75. There's a lot more, so check it out. Menu 502 is your position comment. You can pick one from this list. Mine is usually just off duty, because whenever I'm playing ham radio, I'm off duty. There is an emergency one down here at the end. I wouldn't set it unless you really had an emergency. And if there is an actual emergency, in that case, you probably shouldn't be relying on APRS to get your message out. Menu 503 is your status text. This is just a bit of text that you can send out with your packet. To actually send that text out, you have to mark it with use. Here, I'm just sending out Kenwood TH-D75A. Now, the TX rate represents how often you send out that text message with every beacon. So, for instance, if it's 1/4, that means it will send out the text once for every 4 packets you send out. If you want one to go out with every packet you send, you would set it to 1/1. Next is packet path. That's menu 504. Now this is something that all the APRS videos don't explain. You probably want this set to wide 1-1, wide 2-1 for most situations, unless you're in a rural area. In that case, you probably want to set it to wide 1-1, wide 2-2. Now what the heck does that all mean? What that's describing is how you're going to digipede your signal. Now look at the first half before the dashes. You can kind of consider that a label. So it's either wide 1 or wide 2. A wide 1 digipeater is called a fill-in digipeater. It's usually another HT or a mobile station or a small home station that just repeats your APRS packet to help you get to a wide 2 digipeater. Now, a wide 2 digipeater is a much larger, more powerful station, and a lot of the times it's also an I-gate too. These are called regional digipeaters. They usually have large antennas and a lot more power, and they cover a large area. So in that image, that houses a wide 1 digipeater that's going to repeat your APRS packet to help you get to that wide 2 digipeater on top of that mountain. Now, the dash and the number after the label part is the number of times you want the APRS packet to get repeated by a digipeater. How that works is if the wide 1 digipeater hears your packet, it's going to take your packet path from your packet and subtract 1 from that number and digipeat your packet out. Now, if a second wide 1 digipeater hears that packet, it's going to look at the path information and see wide 1-0. And it's going to say, okay, somebody else already digipeated that, so I'm just going to stop here. Now, if you change that string to wide 1-2, then that number would drop to 1 after the first digipeater hop, and then drop to 0 on the second digipeater hop, and then it would end there. Now, you're definitely going to want to stick to the recommended wide 1-1, wide 2-1, or maybe wide 2-2 if you're in a rural area, because if you set that number higher, you're probably just going to congest your local network. These settings work extremely well without killing your local network, so don't stray from them. A wide 1-1, wide 2-2 setting will get you across a good chunk of your state. And you don't really need to get that far because all you need to do is reach an I-gate. Once you do that, packet information is on the internet and effectively heard around the world. Now, menu 505 is the data speed. Just leave it at 1200 BPS because that's the speed that APRS uses. 506 is your data band. For me, I keep my HT on dual band mode with APRS on band B and band A tuned to some free frequency. The reason why is you can beacon your QSY information in your APRS packet. So if someone receives your APRS packet and they're in simplex range, then they could just QSY to your frequency and call you. You can leave everything else in this menu alone. Now, menu 510 is your beacon TX control. Manual means you have to hit the beacon button, which is the number 6 on the keypad, to send the packet manually. PTT means if you've selected your APRS band and you hit the PTT button, it'll transmit a packet. Auto will auto beacon on a timed interval that you set. And smart beaconing tries to adjust your beaconing rate based on your speed and how often you change direction. This is useful when you're driving. You'll be beaconing more frequently the faster you go. Menu 511 is your interval, or how often you'll beacon if you've set it to auto. Don't bother touching 512 or 513. In 514, if you turn this on, you'll be beaconing your speed information. If you're driving, then I'd think twice about setting this to on if you tend to exceed the speed limit for obvious reasons. Menu 515, here if you switch this on, you'll beacon your altitude information as well if you want. Menu 516 is for objects. Remember that I said that you can beacon the position of an object, for instance, the location of your camp to let your friend know where it is, or the position of a traffic accident or something like that? This is where you create the object to be beaconed. We'll cover that in the second part of the video. Menu 520 is where you control your QSY information. Remember I said that you can beacon your QSY information if someone's in range and they can turn to that frequency and call you. You set this to on if you want to do that. Also 521 and 522 if you're using a tone and an offset. Your packet will contain whatever you have band A set to if you're using band B for APRS. 523 is where you can limit the distance of your QSY info. So say if you want to display that QSY information to someone that's within 10 miles as opposed to like 1,000 miles, you can do that here. 530 controls smart beaconing parameters. You normally don't need to touch that. 540 waypoint you can leave alone. 550 lets you set filtering for APRS packets that you receive, either by distance or by type. So if you don't want to receive a packet beyond a certain range, you can set the amount here, like 10 miles, and anything beyond that your HT will just ignore. I'm going to keep it turned off. And filter type here, you can filter out specific packet types. So like if you don't want to receive weather broadcast, you could just uncheck that. Okay? I keep everything turned on. Menu 560 is where you set up text for auto replies and things like that for messages that you may get. We're going to skip that just to save time. Menu 570 is all about the sounds that your HT makes when you receive a packet. You can control which type of APRS packet your radio will beep on. I have it set to all. 571 TX beep emits a beep when your HT sends a packet when you're in auto mode to let you know when it's transmitting one. If you have it in manual mode, though, it won't beep when you transmit. Menu 5782, this function emits a special call sound when you receive an APRS packet from a specific station that you enter here. Menu 573 is how much of your display you'll use to display an APRS packet info on the screen. Menu 574, interrupt, is how long the APRS packet info will stay up on your display. And menu 575 is to announce a call sign and information of the transmission source when the APRS signal is received. Menu 580 is all about setting up your HT to be a digipeater. If you want to see a separate video on how to do that, then let me know in the comments below. But normally you don't want to do that because you're probably just going to waste battery power and congest your local APRS network. The thought behind using an HT as a digipeater is, say, if you have a group of folks that are out in the field doing something like a search and rescue or something like that, everyone can configure the HT as a digipeater to help everyone else get to that regional digipeater. Menu 590 is a bunch of other random APRS settings that we're going to skip. Those are all the important settings. Now let's go about using APRS. Okay, now this is our fictitious scenario that we're going to use to help demonstrate some APRS functions. You are going on a hiking and camping weekend adventure, and you're going to meet up with a friend of yours who's a ham and also an APRS enthusiast. You are Hiker 1. With your Kenwood TH-D75, taking the Hiker 1 route spelled with too many I's. So you'll be taking the Hiker 1 route. Your friend is hiking in from the north side of the park, and you plan to meet up at your campsite just east of the Glimmering River, also labeled Gliver for some unknown reason. Now let's set the radio up for APRS. We're using both bands. Band A is tuned to some random frequency, and Band B is tuned to the APRS frequency, which is 144.390 in the US. Other countries have different frequency standards for APRS, so check for your country. Now turn your GPS on. And make sure that my position is set to GPS. Don't forget to watch the first part of the series on the GPS functions of this HT if you haven't already. Now switch on the TNC, which is your APRS modem, by pressing Function and then 5. It should say APRS 12 in blue. If it says anything else, keep pressing function and then 5 until it says APRS 12. Now you're set up to transmit and receive APRS. Now you can set your beacon control to something like auto for 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. Now I'm going to leave mine on manual for the demo, so I don't flood my local APRS network. You can also change your status text to something like maybe en route to let your buddy know that you're hiking to the campsite. Also switch your QSY information on if you didn't already, so when Hiker 2 is in range, they can call you. Now you can start to hike and beacon your location as you go. Now, before I get started with this first scenario, let me warn you that you might see APRS packets popping up on my display because I'm tuned to the correct APRS frequency and there's a lot of traffic in my area. So I've set the display timer down to 3 seconds, so it shouldn't stay on the screen too long, but you're going to see real APRS messages popping up occasionally. Okay, so now for this first scenario, you've hiked into an area where cell phone coverage is spotty, and you just realize that you forgot to send a text message to your significant other to let them know that you made it to the park and you're going to start your hike to meet your friend. So what do you do in that case? Well, since you're receiving APRS packets, that means you're in range of a digipeater. So what you can do is use an APRS service called SMS Gateway to send a text message to your loved one. Now, the number 4 button here lists all the APRS messages that you've received. But if you hit function 4, you'll create a new one. To use the SMS service, you create an APRS message. In the to field, set it to SMS. Now, in the message text, you're going to start off with an @ followed by the phone number that you want to send a text message to, and then a space, and then the actual message that you want to send. Now you just hit send to send that text message. Now I'm not actually going to do that because this is a fictitious number. But what will happen is your APRS packet will make it to an iGate if you're in range. It'll route over the internet to this SMS gateway, which will send a text message to your loved one. Now your loved one's going to see that text message with a weird number that they're not going to recognize. But the message will start with an @ and your call sign, followed by your SSID, probably -7, and the message that you sent made it to the park. Now, if they reply to that message, that text message will take the reverse route. It'll route over the internet, back to the iGate, and to whatever digipeater you can reach, and back to your HT, and you'll receive the response. Now, I have to mention that for this to work, you have to opt the phone number into this service if you want to be able to reach it using APRS text messages like this. And to do that, you have to go to aprs.wiki, APRS Wiki, and opt that number in. Now that's done to protect you from getting APRS spam text messages. So before you leave, you'd have to opt that number in and let your loved one know that, hey, you might see a weird text message, but if it has my call sign, that's me. And later on, you can always opt the number out when you're done. Now, let's say you want to find out the weather for tonight or your first night of camping. There is a weather bot called WXBOT that you can send APRS messages to get the weather for your location. Okay, the bot's name is called WXBOT, and you can send it a single word like current or today or tomorrow to get the current weather forecast or tomorrow's forecast and so on. Now, if you just send the word like tomorrow, it'll give you a brief description of the weather tomorrow. You can also add a modifier, the word full, and that might send you multiple APRS messages because it'll give you a full description of the weather. Okay, so now to do that, let's create a new message. We'll hit function 4, which is new. In the to field, we're going to put WXBOT. And hit enter. Now in the body of the message, let's say today. And then we'll send that. And here we got an acknowledgement from the weather bot. Now let's look at that. Now I'm going to look at my messages, and here we have a response from the weather bot. I'll select that, and it gives you the weather. Now let's say you want to find out what the local repeater information is for your area. There is an APRS bot called Repeat where you can send it the letter N in the body of the message and it will send you information for the nearest repeater. Now you can add some other things like N space 2, which will get the nearest 2 repeaters, or you could use a modifier like 2M to get the 2-meter repeaters in the area, or 70cm for the 70-centimeter repeaters, or plus D star to get your nearest D star capable repeater. Okay, now to send the message to repeat, you're going to create a new message, and in the to field, you're going to send it to the word repeat. And in the body of the message, I'm going to send N space 2 space 2M. So there I'm asking for the nearest 2 repeaters that are 2 meter. And then we're going to send that. And you might have seen that pretty quickly, but I just got the response. Let's look at the messages. So see, there's 2 responses here. The first is W2RAP, and it gives you the frequency and offset and tone information and how many miles away it is, southeast from my position. And the second one, K2KGB, with the frequency and the position, the offset, and the distance as well. So that's how you can find out your local repeater information. Okay, now let's say you want to check on your friend to see when they were last heard on the APRS network, so you can get an idea of their current position. You know, there's a bot out there called Find, and you can send your friend's call sign with the SSID that they're using in the body of the message. And the response should be the time they were last heard on the APRS network, the iGate station that relayed their signal, their distance from your current location with their grid square, and the last status message text that was transmitted. Okay, so let's try that out. Now, I beaconed from my other HT, my Kenwood TH-D75, and I'm using -15 as that SSID. So let's see if I could find that last position. So we're going to create a new message. And in the to field, we're going to put the word find. And hit enter. And then in the body, I'm going to use my call sign -15, which is my other HT, to see if we can get that information. And we'll send that. Okay, there you can see the message that came back. So it beaconed 7 minutes ago via this digipeater, and the distance obviously is 0.0 miles away in that grid square because that's, I beaconed from about 8 inches to the left of this HT. So that's the find bot. That's an interesting way of finding out the last time a call sign was heard on the APRS network. Okay, so I'm going to stop with the bots there. There are more that you can explore, but we'll leave it at that. Next, we're going to cover beaconing objects. Let's say you make it to your camp and you want to beacon that location out to your friend. If you receive an APRS packet that has position information in it, you can set it as a target point and navigate to it using your GPS. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then watch my video on the GPS functions of the Kenwood TH-D75 where I cover that. So now to beacon an object, go to menu number 516. And there you have 3 memory slots. Now, I've pre-filled this out so you don't have to watch me type it all out. But in the object, you can give it a name, and then either an object or an item type is what you're going to beacon. Now, the difference is kind of subtle here. Objects are generally used for things that move, such as like storms or vehicles or whatnot. An item is for a fixed or temporary point of interest, like a campsite or something like that. So I've selected live item here. When you create the object as something live, that means it'll create it in the APRS network. And then if you switch it to killed, then it's going to delete it. So for now, we're going to beacon it as a live item. The method is how frequently to beacon it. Temp means that it's going to beacon frequently in the beginning and then slowly back off and eventually stop. So we'll pick that. Then you enter the latitude and longitude coordinates. And you can pick a symbol. I've selected a tent here. And you can also add a comment like I did, camp location. Okay, so when you're done editing the object, select it and hit use. And that'll tag it with use up here in the upper right. That means you're going to beacon that object. Now let's back out. Now to beacon that object, you're going to press the function key and then 6, which is beacon object. So it'll be function and then 6. And that's normally beacon, but when you hit function, it's going to beacon the object. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to send out this junk on the network beaconing a bogus camp. But that's what you would do. You'd hit function and then object, and then it'll beacon that position out. Okay, now on the other side of that beaconing object, when you receive a beaconed object, you can copy it to your position memory list. And you can actually do that for any APRS packet that you receive that has position info in it. So press 5, which is list, and highlight the one that you want to copy to your position memory. Now I'm just going to pick this one here. You can pretend that this is the object camp. It doesn't really matter. But once you select it, hit the menu key, and then copy to position memory is what you're going to want to select. Okay, now this brings up your position memory slots. This was covered again in the GPS video I did on this Kenwood TH-D75. Now you'd want to find a slot that you want to save it to. Now slot 1 is empty here, so I'm going to save that here to slot 1. Okay, now that was saved. Now we can go back to that list by pressing mark. So you see there's the saved position. Now I also have camp in here too, so we can kind of continue with the scenario and use camp. But to set this as your target point, you'll highlight the object that you want to navigate to, and then you'll hit TP, which is target point. Once you do that, it's going to toggle this little flag on here right next to the time column, and that will navigate your GPS to that position. So you can switch your display to heads-up mode, and the red arrow will point in the direction of the object, and you can walk to it. Okay, so that's how you would copy an APRS packet to your position memory to navigate to it. Let's say now you want to send an APRS text message to your buddy to tell him to hurry up or something. Now this is an APRS text message. It's not an SMS text message like we sent earlier. It's only going to go over RF. Now to do that, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is create a new APRS message, and in the to field, you put your buddy's call sign with his SSID, and in the message body, whatever you want to send, and hit send, and off it goes. So let's send a test message to my other HT. Now I'm going to keep this short because, you know, it's painful to watch me type this out. And there's a limit on this message size. I think it's like 65 or 70 characters. So keep that in mind. Now I'm just going to hit send to beacon that out. And off it went. Okay, so let's look at that message. I just responded from my other HT. So here we have the message we sent. Hi. And the response from my TH-D72. Yo. Keeping it simple and short. So that's how you'd send messages to and from. Now, if you want to reply to this message, you could just hit the menu key once you select it. And here you could select reply, and then just type a new message and send it. So you wouldn't have to retype the call sign all over again. Okay, so that's how you send APRS text messages. In the last bit of the scenario, let's say you and your friend are both in simplex distance. If you have your QSY information turned on, then your packets will include whatever frequency you have tuned to your A band. So in my case, it's 144.800. Now let's look at an APRS packet. If you look at the packets here that we received, and there's a letter F in the far right, that means they're beaconing their QSY information. Now, if there's no letter F, obviously there is no QSY information. But if you select one that has that F and you hit the menu key, you see that the first item here in this menu is tune and that frequency. And you can hit that, okay, and see it tuned my A band to that frequency. Even if there was an offset or a tone or whatever that was beaconed in that packet would be set to your A band. Now you can make a simplex call. Also, it's important to know that you don't have to be in simplex distance either. If you're both in range of a repeater and you set band A for the repeater correctly with the correct tone and offset and all of that, and you beacon that information, then the other person will automatically tune to that repeater's frequency. But you have to make sure that those options are turned on in your settings. Okay, but that's how you would automatically tune to the person's QSY information from their APRS packet. Okay, now when you break camp, don't forget to beacon killed item for your campsite so that it's deleted from the APRS network. Now to do that, all you have to do is just switch the object type from a live item to a killed item and beacon that. And then as soon as that packet hits the APRS network, it should be gone. So to do that, again, we're going to go to menu 516. Find the object. And set it to killed item. If you beaconed an object, set it to killed object. If you beaconed an item, set it to killed item. And then once you do that, you back out and you hit function and then 6 for beacon object, and that'll beacon the killed object to wipe it out of the APRS network. Okay, so that's how you would move that object. Okay, folks, so that's a good chunk of the functionality of APRS. There are a few more things that you can do, like send emails and whatnot, and there are more APRS bots to explore. If you want to find out more, then Google will be your best friend. Also, don't forget to look at aprs.org, where you can find more information about APRS, and aprs.fi, aprs.fi. That has a live map that shows you APRS packets that are being beaconed in real time in your location, and you could see a lot of information about those packets there as well. I hope you found that fun and educational. So from the Shack of Joe, November 2, Delta, India, I wish you all good health and 73. Bye-bye.